Hey guys, hope everyone's doing good on this Sunday. Yeah, man. Um, if you're watching this, I just want to give a message, a message of, I would say, hope, I guess, or a message of, um, yeah, just hope. Just a message of understanding. Um, yeah, man. A lot of people out there, um, they give up hope. They give up um yeah, they give up hope. They start to, just sort of, it's not a level of like they're not giving up hope to the extent where, they're about to like commit suicide, even though like that, that might be a case. But I mean, just giving up hope in the sense where, they don't try anymore, where they're just like, or they do try, but it's not as hard. It's like, it's like on the edge of just despair. It's like at the edge of like, it's just like they're waiting for, like they're waiting for like they're waiting for God to sort of throw something from the sky and tell them here, right? Like they're waiting for that, right? But in reality, that's not life, man. That's not the world that we live in. We don't live in the world. We don't live in a world where, things come easy, right? We don't live in that kind of world, right? Where whatever you ask for, you get it, right? You got to put in the work. You got to put in the effort. You know, um, and I think a lot of people's problem, right? I think I would say a lot of us, our problem is that we don't seek knowledge. Like they say knowledge is power, right? It's like, if you know, you would know how to sort of like, it's like if you have the knowledge, right? If you have the tools, you know how to get yourself out of a situation, right? But without knowledge, you're pretty much either, you know, you either give up, or you're waiting on other people to, to give you, like I said, you're waiting on, God to throw something from the sky and to give you that quick solution, right? But, you know, yeah, that's not life, right? Like that's not the world that we live in. Um, things are not gonna come easy, right? You gotta actually put in the work. You gotta put in the time and the effort needed, right? You know, um, yeah, you gotta put in the time. You have to, really, you know, find it in yourself, right? To, you know, yeah, to put in the work and to, seek knowledge, right? A lot of us, we're, we tend to act out in different ways. Like whenever we're like whenever we're at a period of like, where we don't have like any solutions or any answers, so we act out in other ways, right? Like it's like there's frustration, you know yeah, there's like frustration in us, right? And so we act out in different ways, right? um you know and that behavior, right, like us acting out, is sort of, us like, it's like we gave up, or like we're frustrated, right? Like I said, we're frustrated, and now we're acting out to get fixes, I guess, to get like a sort of quick fix, right? um you know and then sometimes, you see people that, they get frustrated at their parents, right? Sometimes you see people who, you know yeah, they get frustrated, or like you know they're angry at their parents, right? For whatever reason, right? Like who knows, whatever the reason, that maybe their parents, um yeah, again, right? Like when you're younger, right, your parents sort of give you the the blueprint, right? Like not a blueprint, but they give you a direction, right? Like as a parent, especially like, our Muslim parents, right? They tell us, learn your deen, learn your religion, right? Pray, they tell us, they tell us to pray, right? And then a lot of us, that's what we do, right? From the moment that we're like 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, right? From young, we pray and we do all that, right? And then you reach like about, somewhere in your teens or like, let's say 20s, right? Where now it's like, you know, I think what our parents, even though I don't blame them necessarily, because a lot of them, they only do what they can, right? They can only do so much. Um, but I think what a lot of our parents, they tell us the like, for example, to pray, right? They tell us to pray, but you know, because you also have to seek knowledge, right? It's not just enough to just pray. You have to also learn, or like I should say, like seek knowledge, right? Like why is it that you pray, right? Like why is it that you do certain things? Why is it that you're told to do certain things, right? You have to seek knowledge, right? You have to know, like, why is it, right? um because then you're not growing up with expectations, right? Like you're not growing up, because I know there's a lot of people out there, right, where their parents might have told them, do good, right? Wear the hijab, pray, stay away from this, stay away from that, right? And so a lot of young guys and girls, right, they grow up and then they realize, like, they're in their 20s and they're like, dang, like none of that is really helping me, right? I mean, they might think that to themselves, right? They might be like, everything that my parents told me is not really helping, because the society we live in right now, is not about that. It's about something else. So it's like, it could get to a level where some people might blame their parents, right? They might be like, my parents, I blame them for, this, that, right? But it's like, you can't really blame your parents, right? Like you also have a responsibility to seek knowledge, right? Like you also have to take action to learn, right? Like your parents, you know, yeah, they could have done more, but like our parents at the end of the day, right? Like they only can do so much, right? And I think that's also one of our problems, right? Is that we expect our parents to be perfect. Like we expect our parents to know everything, right? Like it's like when we imagine what being a parent is, right? We think our, like, parents should be, you know, like they should know everything. And yeah, I mean, as a parent, yeah, you have I guess a bigger responsibility, to educate your kids. But you also have to, especially as kids, we have to also understand, right, that our parents can only do so much. um a lot of them, they didn't have the ability to learn, right, to educate themselves, right? um a lot of, like, especially our mothers, right? Like a lot of our mothers, they looked to our fathers, right, as like a source of like guidance, right? And so our mothers, a lot of them, they didn't really seek knowledge, right? And so they're really just, telling, I guess, passing on to you what they've learned from, the past generations, right? Like their parents, and or their, just those around them, right? And so, like, and yeah, so the point I'm making is, um at the end of the day, right, like, you can't sit, you can't really feel sorry for yourself, right? Like you can't feel sorry for not just yourself, but you can't also blame people, right? Like I know a lot of us, we do that, right? Like we're in a tough situation, right? And we're quick to blame people, right? Especially when things happen that we don't have control over, right? And so like we start to blame people, right? We blame our parents, we blame things around us, right? A lot of us, we start to rebel, right? A lot of us, we act out in different ways, right? Because of that frustration, right? um but like I said, you also have to, take it upon yourself, right? Like seeking knowledge is like is something that everyone has to do, right? Like it's something that everyone has you know a responsibility, right? We all have a responsibility to seek knowledge, right? To learn, you know um and not learn from the things around you, because like the things around you may not be correct, right? Like a lot of us, we look to our like friends, our circle, we look to social media, right? To sort of give us direction into like our lives, right? But it's like the people around us, right? They might not be the best example, right? Like they might not be the best of examples. And so, you really have to seek knowledge. You have to seek knowledge of, first and foremost, your religion, right? Learn your religion, like learn what God, why he, like look into it more. Like why is it, let's say prayer, right? Like why is it that, what, or I should say, what is the benefits of praying? Like what is it, why is it that we pray, right? Like, go into it more, like, so you can at least, it can make sense to you, right? Like, once it makes sense to you, things then will, like you will understand like the world in which we live in, right? And to go back to, you will understand that, this world is not meant to be easy, right? Things are not meant to be handed to you, right? A lot of us, like I said, we grow up with these expectations, like these sense of entitlements, like, we it's like we grew up this way, and then we're like, by the end of, like, it's like we expect certain things to, like, we already have like a map. By the time we're like 10, 11 years old, we already have a map of our life, right? By this age, this is gonna happen. By this age, this is gonna happen, right? And so it's like when that doesn't happen, and then we get frustrated, right? But it's like, life is not meant to, like I said, it's not life is not easy. Like life, things are not just given, right? Like you have to actually put in the work, right? Like you have to actually learn and put in the work. God has given you certain capabilities, right? Like he gave you a mind, right? Like he gave you um yeah, the mind, and and things to learn. Like he gave you like resources, right? Like he gave you things that you can learn from, right? And so, like I said, I think people, have to learn. People have to seek knowledge, especially our families, like the kids, the parents, even the parents, um it's never too late, right? Like, you know I know culturally, like, a lot of our, I know, mothers, right, especially, they were raised to just, raise kids, right? And that's basically, like, culturally, like, that's the only thing, right, that they were told. But it was like, even our mothers, right, like, they also have to seek knowledge, right? So that, they can teach their daughters and their sons, right? Because a lot of the issues that we see today, right, is because of lack of, proper guidance, right? Like, yeah, like, proper guidance, right? Like proper education, right? A lot of times, our parents, they put a lot of emphasis on the daughters, right? Like they'll be like, don't do this, do that. And then the sons, they're more lenient on the sons, right? And then that's even causing problems too, right? Because, you have a lot of sons, a lot of young men who are astray, right? Who are lost, a lot of guys that are very, you know, yeah, just lost and misguided, right? And then our daughters are doing the correct thing, right? But then it's like, now it's like, let's say your daughter now is grown up, right? And now let's say she's looking to, settle down or like get married, and it's like, now who is she, like who does she see as, like, you know like who does she see that is, um that she can choose from, right? When it comes to, like, mating partners and like spouses, right? Like, there's not a lot of men who are responsible, right? Because from early age we put a lot of energy into the daughters, but not this, like, yeah, like you should put energy into the daughters but also the sons as well, right? Like, it should be, you know um yeah, it should be equal, right? Like, you should be telling the sons and the daughters the same thing, right? Like, you should be telling the sons, like, learn your religion, learn your religion, seek knowledge. And you should tell your daughters the same thing, right? Seek knowledge, seek, you know yeah, seek knowledge. But yeah, I think a lot of our issues, especially today, it comes from family dynamics. I would say it starts there. um it starts there, I think. And I also think, yeah, it starts there. I think it starts with the families. And then, because you got to have, like, and especially, like, you have to, especially for those who are thinking about becoming future parents, you know um you should learn, like, you should use your experiences, right, to learn something from it, right, so that you can apply it to your own kids someday, right? And so, one thing I would say that, we can teach our future kids, right, is more of trying to empower them, right? Empowering them in the sense that, like, you want them to be able to think for themselves, right? Like, and I don't mean that, we have to be, because I know there could be extremes, right? Like, some people might be like, oh, my parents were so strict on me, I'm gonna be very lenient with my own kids, right? To where it's like, now you're so lenient that you're not giving your kids any proper guidance, right? Like, no sort of, no proper guidance, right? Like, you don't want to go on either extreme, right? But I would say, I think we should, especially going forward, we have to empower the young people, right? Like the young kids, like the young daughters and the sons, right? So that they can be able to think for themselves, right? um you know and try to educate them, right? Try to educate them, in especially in their deen. Like, what is, like, why is it that, God has ordained for us to do certain things? Like, why is it that we pray? Why is it that we do these things, right? um you know and yeah, and to also educate your kids in different ways, right? Like I said, right now, this world is not easy, right? This world is a test. This world is, things are not meant for you to get it easy, right? But you can do things to change your circumstance, right? And that comes with having knowledge, right? That comes with seeking knowledge, so that, you know like, you can do things to a certain extent, right, to change things. And so you have to exhaust all of that, right? Like, you have to exhaust everything that you can possibly do, right? And then, at the end, leave it up to God, right? But a lot of us, we don't exhaust anything because we don't know, right? Like, we don't have the knowledge to exhaust anything, right? And so, yeah, that's basically what I wanted to just say. Especially with the whole parents and the kids, because, in this society, it's very difficult to, because the times are changing, right? So you also have to change with the time, but at the same, that doesn't mean that you lose your values and your deen and your faith, right? That doesn't mean that, but it just means you have to use your deen. You have to use your deen as as a roadmap, right? As a sort of guidance, right? And then you apply like the deen, or you try to give advice based on the deen, right? You never want to, you want to stay as close, you want to have a roadmap, and you want to stay as close to the roadmap, right? So but you also have to have flexibility, right? You have to have a sense of flexibility, right? You don't want to be too conservative, not too liberal either, right? In today's term, if you want to use today's term, you don't want to be on either extremes, right? And so yeah, you want to, it's very tough, right? Is a very tough line to walk on, but you just got to make sure that what you're saying or the advice that you're giving is in line with your values and your deen, right? Your religion, let's say. And yeah, man, and it's very important, like I said, to really seek knowledge, to know, to be emotionally intelligent, know how your kids, see their behaviors, right? See, because sometimes they're not gonna say things, right? They're not gonna say, sometimes they might not say what they're feeling, right? Especially as you being their parent, they might not feel comfortable, or at the end, you're just their parent, right? Even if you try to be their best friend, there's some things that kids are not gonna open up to their parents about, right? But if you can sort of see their behaviors, right? Be a person of a person who can see behaviors, right? And I guess that's, I don't know, that's, maybe that comes from God, I don't know, but it's see your kids' behaviors, right? And sort of be emotionally intelligent to know what it is that they're going through, right? Or if let's say, again, it depends on your kids, right? It depends, you got to know your own kids. You got to know your own kids and know how to read them, right? And so, like I said, they might not open up to you, right? They might not tell you how they feel, but you can sort of give them advice based on what you think they're feeling. I don't know. I don't know. But again, I think it's different for everyone. Yeah, it's different for everyone. I don't want to give a general, it's just, I think you got to know specific situations, right? But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. It's basically, to seek knowledge and to learn. If you're, especially if you're a young girl or young guy out there, seek knowledge and don't blame your parents for anything, because your parents at the end, they did what they could, right? They put you in a safe, they put you in a safe environment, right? They did all they could to really put you in a better situation, right? And so now you have to do your part, seek knowledge, right? And to apply, things in your own life, right? Based on, knowledge, right? Based on, let's say, the Quran and the Sunnah, right? Based on, yeah, you want to use the deen to sort of guide you in this society, right? And you don't want to go, you don't want to lose your deen at the expense of society, right? And so you got to make sure to not compromise certain things, right? But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say. And yeah, take care, guys.